So here's a question for you. Imagine a future where designing life-saving medicines isn't just happening in labs with test tubes and microscopes. Imagine if computers, powerful AI, were actually helping to design those drugs. Sounds like sci-fi, right? Well, maybe not for much longer. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty huge happening right now in biomedicine. AI-designed drugs are apparently right on the verge of starting human trials. Now, we're basing this on a really detailed report that focuses on, well, one specific company that's really pushing this forward. It gives a fascinating peek behind the curtain. Our mission today, to unpack what this actually means for medicine, how this AI stuff even works in this context, and, what are the implications, what are the challenges for all of us, really. Okay, so where did this all begin? A lot of it traces back to DeepMind. I think most people have heard of them, the Google AI lab. They had this massive breakthrough called AlphaFold. You probably remember that. Yeah, it's huge. An AI that could predict the 3D shapes of proteins with like almost perfect accuracy compared to lab results. And understanding protein shapes is just...
It's fundamental for knowing how drugs work in the body. AlphaFold was a game changer. Right? So building on that, DeepMind's CEO, Demis Hassabis, he founded Isomorphic Labs back in 2021. It wasn't just another project. It was a deliberate move, setting up separate companies. Whole purpose, to use AI, building on AlphaFold and other new AI models specifically to discover drugs, to model biology for pharma.
Yeah, and that step is, I think, really important strategically. It shows a clear shift, doesn't it? Moving from purely fundamental AI research, even really groundbreaking stuff like AlphaFold, towards actually applying it directly to health problems. It's a dedicated commercial company aimed squarely at drug discovery, but with all that DeepMind AI power and Google infrastructure behind it, it's basically building a bridge from pure AI science to, potential patient treatments.
And that brings us to the big news. The reason we're talking about this now, just recently, in July 2025, Colin Murdoch, he's got roles at both DeepMind and Isomorphic Labs, Chief Business Officer and President, respectively. He confirmed it. He said, human clinical trials for drugs designed by their AI are very close to starting.
Very close. That's quite a statement.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the report calls this a critical inflection point. That feels about right. We're moving beyond just in silico work, the computer simulations and virtual tests to the real world, testing these AI-designed molecules in actual people.
Yeah, it's the moment of truth, in a way. Is the AI just good at predicting things on a screen, or can it actually help create something that works safely and effectively in a human body?
Exactly. It's like graduating from theory to practice.
And the implications are, well, they're potentially enormous. This is the first major test case, right, for AI's clinical value beyond just prediction. The report really hammers this home, the promise of speed. We're talking about potentially shrinking drug discovery timelines from the standard decade or more, down significantly, maybe even weeks for some parts of the process.
Weeks? That sounds almost unbelievable compared to the current standard.
It does. And looking even further out, the report mentions something really fascinating, the idea of using AI to design N-of-1 therapies.
N of one, meaning?
Meaning drugs tailored specifically for one single patient based on their unique genetic makeup.
Wow. Personalized medicine taken to the extreme.
Oh, exactly. And the report even dives into the huge questions that raises, like, how would you even manufacture that? How would you price it? It suggests we might need completely new models for delivery and payment. It's thinking way ahead.
Okay, that's the potential. But let's get into the how. How does AI actually speed things up and sort of rewrite the traditional drug discovery playbook? Maybe we can walk through the stages.
Yeah.
Like target identification first. Traditionally, that's finding the right molecule in the body for a drug to hit. That takes ages in the lab, right? Super slow, super costly.
Absolutely. Years of work sometimes. But AI, it can simulate potentially billions of interactions between drugs and proteins almost instantly. It's not just finding a target, it's often predicting the best place on that target for drug to bind. With incredible accuracy, it cuts that time down dramatically. Days, maybe hours instead of years.
Okay, that's target ID. Huge speed up. What about screening molecules? Finding the actual drug compound. Traditionally, that means physically testing millions of chemicals in a lab, right? Which sounds like a nightmare logistically.
It is. It's called high-throughput screening, and it's a massive bottleneck. But AI changes this completely. It does virtual screening. It can sift through huge digital libraries of molecules much faster, scoring them for how well they might bind. And maybe even more powerfully, it can use generative AI to design brand new molecules from scratch. Molecules that have never existed before, specifically tailored to hit that target identified earlier.
Designing new molecules. Okay. Now, what about safety and effectiveness? predicting if a drug will be toxic or if it'll actually work. That's always been a massive hurdle, hasn't it? Lots of failures late in the game after animal testing.
A huge point of failure. This is where AI could be really transformative. It can simulate how a drug might behave in the human body, the whole ADME profile.
Oh, you did?
Absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, basically what the body does to the drug and what the drug does to the body. Predicting this before you even make the molecule in the lab, or definitely before extensive animal tests, that could save immense amounts of time and resources and potentially lead to safer candidates earlier on.
And the final step, optimizing the molecule, refining it. Traditionally, that's chemists tweaking the structure bit by bit.
Right. Iterative design, making small changes, testing, making more changes. AI can streamline that too. It can suggest the most promising modifications right away, guiding the chemists. It integrates those AlphaFold protein structures with the generative models to design these really optimized, novel molecules. It's opening up chemical possibilities we just couldn't explore efficiently before.
So these trials that are very close.
Yeah.
Any idea what diseases they might target first? The report didn't name specifics, did it?
No, Isomorphic Labs hasn't publicly disclosed the exact indications or the molecular targets yet. That's pretty standard at this early stage.
But there must be speculation, right? Based on where AI could have the biggest impact.
Oh, absolutely. Industry insiders, and the report touches on this, suggest some likely areas. Oncology cancer seems a strong possibility, designing drugs to hit very specific cancer-related proteins. Also neurology. Think complex diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, where finding effective treatments has been incredibly difficult.
And maybe antibiotic resistance, too. That's a huge global threat.
Yes, designing novel antimicrobials is another area where AI's ability to explore new chemical structures could be crucial. These are all areas of huge unmet need.
Okay, and what phase would these trials be? Phase I, presumably.
Almost certainly phase I, yes. The primary goal there is safety. You start with small groups, often healthy volunteers first, or sometimes patients, to see if the drug is tolerated, figure out the right dosage range, and look for any immediate side effects. It's that crucial first step in human testing.
And Isomorphic Labs isn't necessarily doing all the clinical trial work themselves, are they?
No, the report mentions they're actively partnering. Using external biotech companies and established clinical trial networks makes a lot of sense. Leverage existing expertise and infrastructure to actually run these studies.
Right. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What does this all mean on a global scale? Strategic significance of AI drugs hitting human trials.
It's potentially massive. Think about the efficiency of R&D first. The commonly cited figures are, 10 to 15 years and over $2 billion on average to bring one new drug to market.
Yeah, staggering numbers.
The report suggests AI, like Isomorphics, could slash that time and cost by maybe 50 to 70%.
50 to 70%. That would revolutionize the whole industry.
It really would. The report gives an example, I think, where one design step that usually takes months was done by the AI in just hours. That's the kind of acceleration we're talking about.
But hang on, does the report address the flip side? I mean, building this kind of AI capability, getting the talent, that must cost a fortune up front, right? Could it actually make it harder for smaller companies initially?
That's a really sharp point, and yes, the report does acknowledge that nuance. The long-term promise is democratization, lower cost per drug means more players can innovate, but you're right. The initial investment in the AI infrastructure, the computing power, the specialized expertise, it's huge. Companies like Isomorphic Labs, though, backed by Google, they have that infrastructure, so they could act more like a platform.
Like providing discovery as a service.
Exactly. Smaller biotechs could potentially partner with them to access that power without needing to build it all themselves. So maybe democratization happens through collaboration initially.
Interesting. And the report also mentioned pandemic preparedness.
Yes, that's another huge potential benefit. If you have this incredibly fast pipeline for designing molecules, imagine a new virus emerges. Instead of taking many months or years to develop a vaccine or antiviral, maybe AI could help design candidates in weeks. That capability could be vital for future public health crises.
Okay, the potential is clearly enormous, but let's be realistic. Innovation never comes easy. What are the big hurdles, the challenges mentioned in the report?
Oh, there are definitely significant challenges ahead. A major one is regulatory acceptance. How do agencies like the FDA in the US or the EMA in Europe evaluate a drug designed by AI? They need new frameworks, new ways to be confident that the AI process is safe and robust, that it hasn't missed something a traditional approach might catch.
Trusting the process, not just the final molecule.
Precisely. And related to that is the black box problem. These deep learning AI models can be incredibly complex. It's often hard to know exactly why the AI suggested a particular molecular structure. That lack of explainability can make regulators nervous. They like to see the working.
Understandable. Any other big ones?
Ethical transparency is key. How is patient data used? Genomic information. How are the models trained and validated? That needs to be crystal clear. And then there's integrating real-world clinical data back into the AI models. The AI needs to learn from actual patient outcomes, not just stay in the theoretical simulation world. That feedback loop is crucial for improvement and ultimately for getting regulatory sign-off.
We've seen the big pharmaceutical companies reacting, haven't we? Pouring money into their own AI efforts or partnerships.
Absolutely. Everyone sees the writing on the wall. They know AI is going to be part of the future of drug discovery.
But what makes Isomorphic Labs stand out, according to the report, apart from being first out of the gate with near-term trial plans?
I think it's their whole approach. The report frames them as an end-to-end, vertically integrated platform. It's not just one tool for one part of the process. They aim to cover the whole spectrum, from identifying the target right through to designing the optimized drug molecule. All of that built on DeepMind's AI breakthroughs and Google's massive computing power. That integrated vision plus the serious backing is why everyone's watching them so closely. Their success or failure could really set the tone for the field.
So looking ahead, where does it get really interesting? What are the next concrete steps we should expect to see?
Well, based on the report and Murdoch's comments, we should probably expect a formal announcement fairly soon about who their clinical trial partners are. And critically, the publication of their preclinical data. The evidence that supports taking these molecules into humans, that will be scrutinized heavily.
And then the regulatory filings, I guess.
Exactly. Submissions to bodies like the MHRA here in the UK or the FDA, that's the formal start of the regulatory journey.
And if those initial phase I trials go well, what's the potential timeline look like?
The report suggests a pretty rapid pace, actually. If phase I shows good safety, phase 2 trials, which start looking at efficacy, does the drug actually work, could potentially begin as early as 2026 or 2027.
Wow, that fast.
Potentially. Which could mean, again, if everything goes well, we might see the very first regulatory approvals for drugs originated by AI around 2028. It highlights just how much AI could accelerate the whole pipeline.
Incredible. So, to wrap up, these upcoming human trials from Isomorphic Labs, they really do feel like the start of something new, don't they? A new chapter where algorithms are genuinely part of the creative process in medicine.
It really is a landmark moment, moving from AI predicting things to AI helping design the interventions themselves.
This deep dive shows we're entering a future where some of the diseases that cause so much suffering might be tackled much faster, much more precisely, thanks to AI. It's not just about doing things a bit quicker or cheaper. It could fundamentally change how we approach health challenges.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will the landscape of medicine look like in, say, 10 or 20 years if this technology truly delivers on its promise? The possibilities are vast and maybe a little bit staggering to think about.